You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 19th show. I am committed to providing you knowledge needed to be successful in every area of your finances. Knowledge is power, and that's what you'll receive from listening to the show today. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And conversation right now, not in studio because he's out of our area, but very, very excited to have a conversation with Ryan Lundquist with Lundquist Appraisal Company. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, hey, thanks so much, Tina. Really appreciate getting to be on your show. So thanks for reaching out.
Of course. And a little bit about Ryan. Ryan's a certified residential appraiser in the Sacramento area. His clients include homeowners, real estate agents, governmental agencies, attorneys, and lenders. Ryan runs the Sacramento Appraisal blog, which is a top-ranking appraisal blog in the United States. And I have to say, Ryan, in the middle of your bio, to give a shout-out, because that's how I found you, by reading your blog. And I thought, my gosh, even though you're not in the area, which is really, I like to have people right here in studio with me versus over the phone. But I was so impressed by the writing and information you provided. I just had to call you and have you in studio. So Ryan has been seen multiple times on CBS, quoted in the local and national publications. He is the chair and housing Opportunity Committee for the Sacramento Association of Realtors, and he is a board member of the Real Estate Appraisers Association of Sacramento. Ryan also won the Affiliate of the Year award in 2014 from the Sacramento Association of Realtors, and really excited that you're involved with Association of Realtors. I am as well. Seattle King County Realtors, Washington Realtors, Women's Council of Realtors. I'm all, passionate about all of those. So very excited that you are as well. So let's just go ahead and get started, Ryan. I mean, it's really, really crazy real estate market. I know in your area as well as is here in our area with all of the multiple offers because of the lack of inventory. And then we add to that what's happening in the appraisal arena. And that's why I thought it was just a really appropriate time to have you and a conversation with you on what's taking place. So why are appraisals taking so long right now, Ryan?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, and this is definitely an issue. And actually, there's a committee in Congress that met yesterday. There was a 2-hour meeting. Ironically, no appraisers were at that meeting, so we'll see what happens. But just a meeting to talk about modernizing some of the appraisal. The appraisal process anyway. So because of this issue, I think it's a response to, hey, why are appraisals taking so long and what's going on here? And so in short, I mean, there's definitely less appraisers than there were, say, 10 years ago. I know in California we have 40% less than we did about 10 years ago. But the thing is that we actually, I think what we're seeing is just a correction in the market on one level where fees have been so low for so long, and you have appraisal management companies that have been just skimming off the top for so long that I think the market's come back and appraisers are saying, hey, no, I'm not willing to work for that low fee.
Yes.
And so yes, on one hand, there are far less appraisers, but on the other hand, like I just saw a post on Facebook in a private appraisal group, and then the appraiser somehow has a screenshot of the fee structure, and so the borrower paid $650 for an appraisal. The ANC is taking $350 and then giving $300 to the appraiser.
That's crazy.
So you have the system like this, and then so over time, I get invitations every single day, like many appraisers across the country, saying, "Would you join our ANC?" But I just click delete. I don't even read them. Because I know exactly what's gonna, what the fee structure is going to be like, and it's not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, and I've kind of you've got to play around with things a little bit to find that sweet spot. And let me know what your thoughts are here, Ryan, because what I found, I always let my clients know they've got to pay in a rush right up front. And I just let them know what they need to do for us to be successful, because that's what my job is. My job isn't to ask questions and what they feel like doing, but to instruct them in exactly what we need to do, because ultimately we all want to come to the same result, which is having a successful closing, and not a 45-day successful closing, but a 30-day successful closing. And what I found is, I put the appraisal fee out there at $9.95, which is has the rush in it. And then also, instead of asking for a week for it to come back, I'll ask for it to come back in 2 weeks, because I know if the appraisal comes back in 2 weeks that I'm going to be able to close no issues in a 30-day closing. But if I put it out there at $9.95 and ask for a target date of 1 week, it's harder to get that appraisal picked up. So can you kind of explain behind the scenes why it's the same amount of money, but I've just adjusted my request for the target? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I just want to say applaud you, because that's very smart. Because the thing is that markets change all the time, and there's no such thing as something, gas isn't always the same price forever. Neither is toilet paper or eggs or whatever. And same thing with, I think, appraisal fees. And then, when a group of people get busy, kind of like hiring a contractor right now in my market, if you want something, quick, it is going to be nearly impossible to find someone because they're so busy.
Yes.
And same thing with appraisers. And so I think when you look at a market and think, wow, okay, there's less appraisers than there used to be, but then you have some appraisers that are saying no to, some lowball fees, then you have to offer something market rate, but then be reasonable and think, gosh, if appraisers are so busy and they're taking longer to do their work, it's almost like setting yourself up for failure if you say, yeah, we need this in 5 days and here's $600, because then they're going to, whoever the AMC is, they're going to shop around for the lowest fee possible and find that one person who's going to do it, but then they might take 2 weeks to shop for an appraiser. And so if up front you know that here's what the market's like, then you're acting within what is reasonable for the market. And I think that's what wisdom looks like in business.
Yeah, and it's just it's interesting, and thank you for the compliment there, Ryan. And it's interesting to find out what works, because the money wasn't what it was all about. The money is a big part of it, but also, am I setting up realistic goals for the appraiser that's going to pick that up? Now, you had mentioned AMC, which stands for Appraisal Management Company. Ryan, can you explain that to my listeners that don't understand what that is?
Sure. So when Dodd-Frank was enacted years ago, what's it been, five or so years, maybe 9, I don't remember, but part of Dodd-Frank, it separated the ordering process for appraisers. And so loan officers, real estate agents, homeowners no longer directly hire an appraiser for an appraisal that's geared towards Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, most banks. And so private deals, they can hire appraisers all day long. But so what happens is that there's a third-party appraisal management company who is ordering the appraisal instead of that, the realtor, the agent, or homeowner. And so that third-party company is essentially, been skimming the appraisal fee, sometimes cutting it in half, taking, way too much. But other times there's some that are very reasonable. There's some that are, much more pleasant to work for. So that's kind of what an appraisal management company does and is.
And, the why behind it, which is always nice when you're talking with somebody to explain what's happening. The why behind it is because when the mortgage professionals and the banks had control over it, they were pressuring, intentionally or not intentionally. If one appraiser said that he could support value and the other appraiser said he couldn't support value, well, where would all the future business go? It would go to the appraiser that could support the value. So it put added pressure onto the appraiser, which they felt was not protecting what the true value was. And so it makes sense and why that's there. Now, also, I want to talk, I've been saying for years, Ryan, that our appraisers need to get a raise. There's going to be a time where there's going to be an issue, and I'm surprised that it took this long. Once the appraisal management companies came in, and just as you said, they started taking a lot of the fee. Not only that, but you guys never got an increase in your fee anyways. And then all the behind the scenes of what's required to train somebody to come and help the team. I mean, it's it's again surprising that it has taken so long for this to happen. But talk a little bit about the appraisal fees and the increase of that.
Yeah, so appraisal fees, I think they've been very subdued for years. And I know this is the part where people, say, oh, get the violin out, let's start playing that because I feel so bad for you. But the thing is that I think what we're experiencing is some of the unintended consequences of the implementation of Dodd-Frank and the appraisal management company system. And so you have years where appraisers have been beat down or, there's so much that appraisers are being asked to do, and reports are, twice as long as they used to, and they're just being so scrutinized. And so you have people who are saying, I'm tired of the industry, or it's really difficult to train new people. And so I think that, or education that has actually been raised. And so to become an appraiser, it takes even more. And so if it takes more to become an appraiser, appraisers are getting paid less, then it's going to be a real problem. And I think we're starting to feel some of that in the real estate community. And so, we really need to give attention to that and make sure that appraisers do have a market rate fee, something that's market rate, where I don't think appraisers are saying, I need $4,000 for this appraisal. That's not what should be happening unless it is a $4,000 appraisal. But, I would just argue for, hey, let's go reasonable market rate.
And I will tell you, as a industry leader in the mortgage world, that if you're out there, you charge $995, ask or put it out there at $995, ask for a 2-week turn time. You should have no challenges with the appraisal process. Now, Ryan, what do you wish for, if you were talking to my realtors, because I have a lot that listen to the show, what can they be doing differently when interacting with the appraiser?
Sure. That's a fantastic question. My ideal realtor, and I speak to realtors every single week in offices. I have so many who subscribe to my blog, and I'm really a fan. And so all this is coming from a good place. I'm not nagging anyone. But I'd say when you're working with appraisers, make sure that you take off your realtor hat where you're selling something and put on your data hat, okay? And you want to tell the story of the marketing of the property, because if an appraiser's going in there and wanting to put a value on this property, then value is all about context. And you ask, how does this property fit in the market? And so, we want to know things like how many offers were there, what specific prices, what upgrades have been made to the home, what type of feedback did you get about the property from agents and from prospective buyers? And, and if it's okay, why did the seller select the buyer's offer? What's been happening in the neighborhood market? Anything about, the property in particular. And so I find that sometimes agents will fall into sort of a default mode, and they'll, just sort of put on this sort of 2005 mentality where, hey, I need you to hit the number. And, that's probably not good ethically, okay? But I would say on a practical level, that doesn't really do anything to help the appraiser do his or her job. And so if you can provide data in the hands of the appraiser, that's fantastic. And in addition to all that I mentioned, which I actually have a sheet, I can send it to you if you want to post it on the show or, get it to someone. But I love when agents fill out this sheet, and then meet me at the property, and then then I have everything all in one place, and it's really focused on data. It's not stuff that I'm just going to throw away. If an agent hands me a stack of stuff that he or she thinks is good, where I'm like, well, this is good for the recycle bin, and so I just want to hear the story of the property, and so
that makes a total sense, Ryan. And the crazy thing. So if we're talking to the realtors that are listening to the show right now, you're doing all of this work and doing all of this research on the property beforehand anyways, because your clients are asking for it, especially when they're having to go in, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 plus over asking price to compete in this market. So why not provide that to the appraiser? Now I'm going to take us to break here, but I'm having 2 segments with Ryan because I think this is such an important topic for conversation. So coming up next, don't turn the station, because we're going to have more conversation with Ryan about what's happening with the appraisals and how to be successful and win right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 19th show, bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our local economy and how it can affect your money. And I'm having a conversation with Ryan Lundquist with Lundquist Appraisal Company. And this is just such a timely conversation to have right now with everything that's happening in our market with appraisals. And we were talking a little bit, a shout out to realtor professionals that are listening to the show and kind of really having to prepare and to assist with the appraisal. And it kind of brings me into another question, Ryan, that I'd like to ask you. The appraisal is based on the appraiser's opinion of the property, and opinion means that there's a variance in what the value of that property is. So in helping prepare up front of the history of the property, which you talked about, also your interactions with the appraiser to make their job a little bit easier can help and assist in that. Now, what do you see in how an appraisal, do you have and I don't want to put you on the spot, Ryan, if this isn't something that you have, but could be the percentage that you could see appraisals vary from one appraiser to another? Is there?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, here's the thing. I think when we hear the word opinion, we all think, oh my gosh, that's horrible, you know, but I mean, everyone has an opinion, but the thing is that the opinion should be based on, you know, market data, and it needs to be, here's my opinion of value, and it's supported. And so it's not like I would walk into a house or another appraiser would go, wow, this green shag carpet is, you know, minus 20%, or I really don't like modern architecture, so this house is going to, you know, get a low value, or I really like this type of architecture, so it's worth more. And so the appraiser shouldn't be subjective like that. There is an opinion of value, but it needs to be supported. And so, but the thing is that if we're honest in real estate or with anything, there's always a reasonable range of value.
Yes.
And so if I was going to sell a dresser on Craigslist, and then I might think, okay, here's what they've been selling for, and I'm probably going to get around $125. And I might be happy, though, anywhere from $115 to $140. And so when we look at a property, we wouldn't look at this house and say, it's worth exactly $567,462.38 because the market's not that specific.
Yes.
And so I think that we like to think that value is that specific, but we really might look at something and then think, you know, it's very reasonable based on data, based on trends for this property to sell anywhere within the range of $550 to $570. And so maybe it has some extra upgrades. It's got that accessory dwelling, and it's got all the bells and whistles. So when we're looking at the data and we see sort of this range of prices, we're looking, wow, you know, I'm going to reconcile the value towards the higher end of that range because this one is cream of the crop. Or maybe if a property needs a little bit more fixing, it's a little bit more outdated, well, here's the range of value. It just makes more sense that the market would probably respond and say, yeah, you know, we're going to pay a little bit lower on that range. And so I think we just have to respect the range. And so, you know, when it comes to contract prices, that just reminds us that, you know, the contract isn't something holy, and it's something that can be negotiated. And I think that during the ramp-up of values 10-plus years ago, we got so used to in the real estate community saying that, you know, the contract is holy and we can't touch it. The appraiser's got to hit the number. But I think we need to sometimes back off that and go, wow, you know, sometimes properties get into contract for too high, sometimes it's too low. But if it's right within that range, then the appraiser can certainly just bring it in right at the contract and say, gosh, the buyer and seller nailed value. They did a really good job. This is a reasonable representation of the market. And that's fine.
So, Ryan, let's also talk about, because, and fortunately, I have to say, I have not had a lot of challenges with value. So, you know, my realtor partners are doing an excellent job out there in strategizing up front, so we're not having value challenges. But what you do hear with value challenges, a common thing would be, well, we had all of these other people that were willing to offer this price for the home. So that surely determines that what the consumers are willing to pay for this home right now have to be that value, even though that there are not comparables supporting it. Can you answer that, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say yes and no. So sometimes there's not good sales, or maybe they're low sales, or short sales, or distressed, or something was going on, and so those sales, they're not really comps, they're sales, and we need to call them what they are. But other times, I mean, a property is really unique, and we're going to have to really ask the question: how does this fit within the market? And it may not be, the sale, 2 streets over. It may be, something that's 2 miles away that's really more adequate because it's a custom home and there's something so special about this. But I think when a property has multiple offers, sometimes that says something about the market where we go. And so if I hear from an agent, there were 10 offers on this property, and if I don't believe the agent, I'll say, great, email them to me. I want to see them. Okay. And then if the agent doesn't email them to me, I think, well, what's going on? And I understand there's disclosure rules, but sometimes agents will say, there are, 7 offers on this property. You got to be able to back it up. Please tell the truth. But the thing is that sometimes there's a lot of offers, and sometimes it reflects the market, but other times I think it's a reflection of financing. And so if you look at some neighborhoods where there's FHA, VA, and there's very little skin in the game, you might see a property that's been on the market for a long time, and then all of a sudden there's a full price offer.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, is that the market or is that financing? And so I'm always asking the question of agents, okay, there were all these offers, what price levels, and then talk with me about what the conventional FHA, VA, and cash offers have been coming in at. And so I think that I want to hear that story because sometimes that tells me quite a bit about the market too. And, and I might be able to think, wow, okay, here were people really, really putting some serious money down, and maybe this says something about the market. And there have certainly been times when I think before I go out to a property, I start pulling data, and I'm like, wow, this looks like it's in contract for way too much. But then I begin talking with the agent, and I hear all the information about the property, and I start to get a little bit of a different perspective. And then the more I talk with other agents about the comps and such, I can, sometimes I'll just conclude, yeah, this is a reasonable representation of the market. But if I didn't do my research, then I think I would have originally concluded, oh, no, this one's not going to make it.
So you brought up loan program, and I want to talk to you about that because I was at a couple months ago, a Realtors Association meeting where they had an appraiser come in and speak. And it's really interesting. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know I don't know everything, but you start to get in your space thinking, wow, I've got this nailed and I know everything. And I had no idea, and it totally shocked me, but then it made sense when I heard him say this, that he says in a multiple offer scenario, you've got cash buyers, and then you've got, buyers that are coming in with a 30% down payment, and then you've got one buyer that's coming in with a 5% down, and that 5% buyer is paying top price for the home. And let's say maybe they're paying an extra $10,000 for this home. He actually discounts the value that's over what at the top value, discounts for the fact that the buyer is a conventional 5% down competing with cash buyers or high down payment buyers because he's feeling that that buyer is being forced to pay more than the home is worth. Now, we're assuming we're talking about there's no comparable properties that can support this value. So I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that they could support, the value could be determined based on what the buyer's coming in with for a down payment. What are your thoughts, and what can you share on that?
Well, I mean, I can understand that sentiment, and I mean, I think on one hand we have an eye on, okay, what's the quality of these buyers in terms of their financing, and because maybe that says something about the market. But in truth, though, the proof of value is found in the comps. It doesn't matter if a grandma is selling to her grandson for $1.
But assuming there's no comps, though, that's where the challenge is there's no comps to support the value. You've got other offers that are here, but you've got this low down payment that's paying a little bit higher value. Would you feel in that scenario that they're being forced to pay a higher value to compensate for the fact that they're a low down payment competing against cash buyers.
Well, yeah, I do, and I think that's why we see sometimes you see FHA and VA buyers who are paying more than anyone, because they're really looking at what they can qualify for. And the thing is that they have to compete with other offers that are going to look much stronger when the realtors, give those offers to the seller. And so I think that's why in a lot of cases we do see that. Yeah, definitely.
So another shout out for the real estate professionals. When you have a buyer that's doing a low down payment or an FHA loan, really put some extra work into preparing that data for the appraiser to really help. Because if you can see behind the scenes and what the appraiser is thinking, really it can help put that picture together. So Ryan, what advice would you give to sellers about pricing their homes?
Yeah, sellers. Okay, so it's very important to realize that buyers are very much more in tune with the market these days than they've ever been before. And so I know sometimes in real estate we like to bag on Zillow and Redfin, and we don't like maybe those estimates, the estimates of value. But the thing is that buyers are really in tune with the market because they're paying attention to Zillow, they're paying attention to Redfin. They are very aware of all the listings in the neighborhood. And so oftentimes in a market, when buyers get to the table and they start making offers, they know what they're doing. Now, not in all cases. Sometimes buyers really blow it. But I'd say sellers, what they're more prone to do, they're not doing that type of research. And what they would do is look at the highest sale from 3 streets away and then think, there it is, and then mine is $20,000 better. So, but what they really have to do is look to the sales that are actually similar, what has sold, and then not only just the sales, but they have to really pay close attention to the listings. What is actually getting into contract right now? Okay, because we really see the market. We give attention to the sales, but we really have to watch the listings and the pendings because that's where we're going to see current value. Just like in the stock market, I would want to know if I was going to invest in Apple. Let me look at Apple sales over the past 2 years, but ultimately it comes down to what is Apple stock selling for right now today. Okay, and Samsung 7 Note, I'm probably not going to buy that stock right now. Okay, so, but I would just say to sellers, pay very close attention to what is actually similar, because you're going to have all sorts of issues if you don't listen to your agent who really knows, what's reasonable, and then the property gets into contract, then the appraisal comes in low, but it's not really low because that's kind of where it should have been marketed. So just pay attention. That's what I would say.
So, Ryan, I've got 1 minute. I've got to wrap up my time with you, but I want you to answer a question if you can. How do you come up with adjustments in the appraisal reports?
In just 1 minute. Okay, so adjustments should reflect the market. Okay, there's no such thing as just a list that will make sense in every area. Okay, we say like, okay, here's a pool and it's worth, $20,000, but I would say, well, which neighborhood? Is that Beverly Hills? Is that New York? Is that Seattle? And so the adjustment should really be specific to the market, okay, because adjustments might look different depending on the price range, depending on the neighborhood, depending on the location. And so it's all about what are buyers in this area willing to pay for that feature. And that's where we need to get adjustments from, because as much as we would like that list to be there, there can't really be a list like that because it wouldn't make sense for every location.
Makes sense. Ryan, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I was able to have you for a couple segments instead of just one. Next time, I'm going to have to give you the entire show, because just such valuable information for any of my buyers and sellers out there, and definitely for my realtor partners. So I want to thank you again for spending some time with me today.
Oh, hey, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. And you have a very happy Thanksgiving, okay?
You do the same, Ryan. Coming up next in the Money Hour, how can you improve the health of your finances? Dr. Kabran Chupnik with Amen Clinic Northwest, investing in brain health, right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.